Let's talk some chess. So if you're like me and you're a little bit scared, a little bit nervous about all the AI developments in recent months, then this is the game for you, because this game was played back before computers could destroy humans in chess, which sort of has been the case for the past 20 years. Even the best human players will lose when they're playing against stockfish turned up to 11, which is okay. That's fine. We're more interested in games where humans play humans, but anyways, I won't get off into that tangent. This is a game from back when humans would really destroy computers in chess, and computers could not stand a chance. And that's because this was played in 1977 in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Bobby Fischer, who we all know, is playing with white pieces against a computer named the Greenblatt computer. So a strong computer at the time, and wanted to go up against one of the strong human chess players to see how it would fare. And the results, as we will see, are very satisfying for those of us rooting for the human. So Bobby opens with e4, we have e5 from the computer, and immediately f4 from Bobby, playing the King's Gambit and sort of testing the knowledge of the computer's theory and if it can deal with these sorts of gambits. So the computer accepts the gambit and plays e takes on f4, and Bobby immediately brings out his favorite piece to bishop to c4, eyeing this pawn here. And this is where the computer makes the first mistake. Instead of playing the correct move, which is queen to h4, very common move in many lines of the King's Gambit. You can't block with the pawn because then you get pawn takes, and now if pawn takes back, queen takes rook, so that's not good at all. You pretty much have to move the king to f1 here, and now this is sort of an awkward position. It's still okay, but it's more awkward. Instead of bringing the queen to h4 with check, the computer here plays d5, which just doesn't make sense at all. Sure, it attacks the bishop, but then Bobby just takes the pawn on d5, and this is totally fine. You have this beautiful central control. Black has given up, or at least moved away, two central pawns, and this is no good at all. So here the computer puts the knight on f6, now attacking the bishop and the pawn, but Bobby puts his own knight on c3, protecting the bishop, so replacing the piece on d5 if it is indeed captured. Black plays bishop to b4, attacking this knight. Bobby brings his other knight to f3, and the computer castles kingside, and Bobby follows as well. So now both kings are castled kingside. At least the computer knows the value of king safety. Here the computer takes on d5, so we have knight takes on d5, knight takes on d5 again, and this is a nice move because not only do you have still a piece on d5, but you're attacking the bishop on b4. And this is a little bit of a trap. I don't know if Bobby intended it. I'm sure he did, but he sort of forces the computer here into playing this bishop to d6 move. But this is the incorrect move, and it leads to a very bad combination and a very bad position, if you're playing with the black pieces. So what you actually have to do here is ignore this knight attacking the bishop, and you have to sacrifice the bishop, or at least what looks like a sacrifice, with f5. So playing this f5 move. And now the knight cannot take the bishop, because if knight takes bishop, then you have pawn takes on e4, and now all of a sudden these two pawns are looking pretty good, and this pawn is attacking the knight. So if the knight tries to retreat, the only square that makes sense to retreat, really, well, maybe e5 is fine, but let's say the knight retreats to e1, then you get queen to d4 with check, and this check also forks the knight on b4, so you're winning back your piece, and you have these two excellent pawns, and this is actually very winning for black. So that's the idea, is you have to play this f5 move, ignore the knight attacking the bishop, and you'll be totally fine. And of course, modern computers can calculate that, but the Greenblatt computer could not, and just brings the bishop back to d6, protecting the pawn here on f4. But now there's just a huge advantage in the position for Bobby, and he takes advantage by playing d4, consolidating his center. I guess not consolidating his center, adding to his center. Here, Black plays g5, which is just this d4 move also opens up an attack on the f4 pawn, so now the knight and the bishop are attacking the f4 pawn. It's only defended by the bishop, so the computer here plays g5, defending this pawn, but this is ugly. Like, there's no basically protection for the king here. This g pawn is on g5, and this is going to be very easy for Bobby to attack and take down. And indeed, Bobby punishes this move immediately by just sacking the knight on g5. Doesn't even, maybe he thought about it, but just sacks the knight on d5, and now the g file is totally open, and this is going to be easy pickings for the white pieces. So queen takes on g5, the computer accepts the sacrifice, but now you get e5, just removing this dark square bishop completely from the action. And here the computer actually plays a nice little intermezzo. I forget what the name for this, an in-between move, I guess, is the name for it. bishop to h3, now threatening checkmate on g2. Of course, Bobby sees this and plays rook to f2, preventing against checkmate. And now the computer actually sacrifices a piece to sort of get some compensation back. So bishop takes on e5, pawn takes on e5, and now black attacks the knight on d5, trying to sort of get this knight out of the powerful position it is in. But Bobby here ignores that for a moment and plays the very natural bishop takes on f4, develops a piece with tempo by taking a pawn, and of course attacks the queen. So sort of a double tempo here. The queen is forced to move to g7, but now, you know, you can envision this rook sort of coming to the g file and pinning the queen to the king, and that's not going to be very good at all. So here you can't move the rook yet, of course, because there's still this threat of checkmate of the queen and bishop on h2. So first Bobby plays knight to f6, and now this is a super powerful knight. We can see why the computer wanted to sort of get rid of this knight on d5, but it's even more powerful on f6 because it's, you know, there's no pawns that can kick this knight away, and now it's checking the king, and this is going to be tough to deal with. So king has to move to h8. That's the only move unless you want to give up your queen. But now you get the beautiful queen development to h5, and now these pieces are just circling in and going for the kill. So the queen is eyeing h7 with the knight. Of course, there's no threat immediately because it's protected by the black queen as well as the king. But you know, the black queen can no longer move lest there be checkmate. And the white queen is also threatening to pick up the bishop on h3. So any semblance of a counterattack that black has will be gone if the queen can take the bishop. Here, actually, the computer moves the rook to the open file. I don't really know why. Maybe it was worried about this bishop coming to h6 and skewering the queen and the rook, so maybe that's why. But now Bobby just takes the bishop on h3, and the counterplay is just completely gone. So now Bobby is up a piece and has a massive attack. The computer brings the knight to a6, and this is what's fun about, you know, playing the computer, and I think Bobby said this in the game too, is that the computer will never give up. It'll just keep playing and keep playing no matter how much it's down, and you can just keep making these crushing moves and finish the game with style. So here Bobby finally can bring the rook to f3, finally on the third rank, now that you don't have to worry about the queen and the bishop attacking on g2. The queen moves to g6, not really many moves that you have here, going for some counterplay on c2. If Bobby gets really lazy, then the queen and the rook can join up on the attack, but of course that's not going to happen. Bobby just plays the really brutal, just a brutal rook to c1, not even getting the rook to an open file, just protecting this pawn and stopping the queen from infiltrating his home camp. So that's a nice little move. And now king to g7, trying to run the king away. The king can't go to g8 because the knight is defending, so trying to get the king somehow to safety. But now you just have rook to g3, the move that we've sort of been seeing threatened all along. And now the rook, of course, is pinning the queen to the king. Here, the computer moves the rook to the rook to h8, protecting this pawn, which is also attacked a bunch. Bobby, it doesn't take the queen yet. He just plays. Oh, I'm sorry. I just spoiled it. Sorry about that. See if you can now find. I mean, there's so many moves that completely win and are totally fine. See if you can find the winning move to end the game here for Bobby. Okay, so apologies for spoiling it, but you know, this is if you want to take the queen, that's totally fine. That absolutely works. But the fastest way to end the game, and what Bobby played, of course, is queen to h6, and this is checkmate. The queen is checking the king and taking away the f8 square. The knight can't be taken because the pawn defends it. The king can't move to g8 because the knight is defending it. And most importantly, the black queen cannot capture the white queen because it's pinned by the rook on g3. And this bishop is just the bishop is not just hanging out. Sorry, the bishop is protecting the queen. So all of these pieces are doing something, and even the pawn is protecting the knight. All of these pieces are joining in on the attack and finishing the checkmate. So just a total beatdown, very satisfying to see, especially because we know, you know, the opposing player is a computer, and it's awesome to see a human just beating down a computer like this. So I hope you enjoyed it. Obviously, you won't see this anymore. You're not going to see any videos like Magnus destroys Stockfish, of course, unless Magnus gets way, way better. But that's an aside. So hope you liked it. Thanks for watching. Drop a like, drop a subscribe, drop a comment if there's any games that you want to see reviewed, and we'll talk to you next time.